Hi everybody, Llewellyn here with Worn to Whimsy. We're going to be working on this dresser, which is a new scene. I just did the other side, so tonight I'm going to finish up this side and kind of continue this misty background looking part over to the edge. And I'm going to kind of wrap the black or the dark. It's midnight sky, so it's like nearly black. It's about as dark gray as you can get. Caviar is Dixie Belle line. In the Dixie Belle line, it's their black, and so this one's like the next one up is Midnight Sky, which I actually use a lot of. I find that Caviar, well, you know, I guess it just depends on what I'm working on. So the other paint colors that I'm going to use on this piece so far are Hurricane Gray, and I've got a lot of cotton on here, the white color. And then in the center, I used Daisy, just a hint of it to kind of get that yellowy, like kind of where the sun is coming through the hazy, misty feeling night. So I'm gonna hop right in. My brushes are just a little bit damp, and I did use them earlier, so they still have the paint on them. Just grabbed them right out of the bag. And I am going to start, what should I start with? I think I'm gonna start with my lights and then move down to my darks. So it's kind of a cloudy blend because it's mist. I feel like it's crazy, like, oh, I totally forgot blueberry. That's the blue color. Yeah. I feel like everything I do, like the piece right before it, it's always almost like a prep for the next piece. Okay, so this is the first coat, because I feel like, you know, you learn a little bit more with each piece, and I am set up the wrong way to be left-handed today, so switch to my right. Okay, and then just kind of rubbing the white on there, and then I've got just the littlest bit of paint right here, and I'm just gonna put that right into my cotton, which is the brightest white in the Dixie Belle line. So that's blueberry mixed with cotton. And honestly, I might put just the tiniest hint of gray in there. It got a little bit, when the blue dries, it gets pretty blue. So it got a little bit blue. So I'm just gonna, you see how little paint that is? Okay, so I'm gonna keep going in with cotton. I added the slightest bit of Hurricane Gray. I wanted this side to be, get dark a little bit quicker. And we'll add a little bit more of that Hurricane Gray in here. And I'll mix some blueberry in a second. I am using a few brushes today, mostly the two oval ones. I was using one for my yellow, because if you mix it up too much, it'll just turn kind of gray. And one for my blue and white, and then one for my darks. I don't always do that, but for this one, it just kind of depends on what colors you're gonna use, you know? I'm gonna go in here with my, it looks real dark, but I'm just doing this blending. This is the first coat. I can always change anything I want. This first coat pretty much just places the colors. All right, we're gonna slowly move over. I just wanted to take it all the way to the edge. I'm kind of graying the, this is the blueberry, and I've still got that gray on here, and it's working out well. It's making a really pretty gray color, and less of a blue. I went a little bit blue on the other side and went back and kind of undid it, because it was a little bit too much blue. So you can see it's already dry over here. That's why it's not blending right there. So I just went in with I added more white to just soften that line while this side was wet. Okay, so this is going into the Midnight Sky color. We're gonna just do these circle blends. This is still, like I said before, the first coat. I will be coming back through, and this will, it'll be getting more towards like perfectly blended. That second coat really brings it, you know, because like right now you can see some little lines with these darker colors. So because I'm not just straight up painting it on like this, nice straight brush strokes, but I'm doing this swirly thing. Okay, let's get this blue in here again. Blue gray. And you see as I go back over, the black is still a little bit wet, so it just blends really easily. that will dry like slightly darker, just a little bit. And we'll see if that's enough. Maybe more blue, although that would blend it to the background. Let me try that. More blue and gray. Probably added too much white. Okay, so, and my shaky hands shake, that's okay. So this one's kind of further off. They can kind of like show up and just disappear into the background. And I think I'll do a few of them in this color. And this is just the trunk of the tree. I can blend it in darker. Get that a little bit. I will come back and fix these up. I usually do it with like a little tiny brush and get in there. And I'll bring it all the way up and out. And we're gonna add some greenery to them, which will be, I don't know how much green I'm gonna end up using. I think that'll be mostly a shadow too. Okay, we're getting these sticks in there. And yes, they look a little crazy, but that is okay. We're gonna get a ton of greenery in here too. That's gonna sort of cover them up. It's a shadowed greenery, but I like to get my base in here first and just, you know, you slowly, each step, slowly move forwards. I don't want to do too much at once because then I'll end up like, if I hadn't finished the background, I'll have to go back and do the background. I'm just stippling these in here. They don't have to be perfect quite yet. I'll go in and add some lighter stuff too. But most of this area, that's why I kind of did it dark down here. Most of this area is going to end up being trees. And I'm going to add some lights and stuff in here too, some light colors too. So that'll bring these trees more out. Sometimes building branches helps me to build the tree. And they don't even have to be perfect, but just helps me know where to put stuff, you know? It's a little more tree shaped. And let's get in here with this. Okay, let's go to the blue-gray color. And man, I think I'm gonna use that brush again and just kind of get some of this, the fan brush again, and just kind of lay some of this in over the top. Give it some dimension. I'm just gonna really gently go in here and just go kind of back and forth between the two. And it just lightens the top of them, like they've got some light hitting them just a little bit. So I'm gonna make these tree trunks just a little bit lighter. I will be adding more detail into that for sure, but you see how that brought them? I might actually, I got a little bit bright in here, so I might end up darkening it in this area. I could do a little bit of that right now, but if I darken it, then I'll probably want to lighten it too. Let's see. Darken it back up. But I do like how much that just brightening that trunk added. I think that's already my favorite part. Let's get some little branches in here. And these are super simple. I just try to make them like a little bit wiggly. So I'm gonna make just some wiggly. This is like a pine tree that is kind of sad. So keep going down. It's starting to look like a sad little pine tree. I'm gonna put like a lot of them, their branches will point down, so I'm going to do some of that. So I'm going to bring it down a little further. And I'm just kind of like none of the little lines are like not straight, just a little bit crooked. Okay, we're hopping back in and we're going to continue on this forest dresser. So on this other side, I basically started with some pine trees. You can see I'm getting in the large trunk on the pine tree. And adding in some branches. Now I did mix a little bit of water in with my paint on this part. And I just used a flat brush and just dabbed some branches right in there. I believe I'm looking at a picture of a pine tree. And just using that to sort of form it and put it in there how I want it. And I wanted to give them a little bit, still that misty sort of a feel to it and not be too deep or too dark. So that's, you can see I used my finger to rub a little bit of it out. And just getting lighter as I go and slowly dabbing more in there. And going back and forth between those darker colors and then maybe some lighter ones like something off in the background. So as I'm going, I'm just slowly adding some texture back in behind and maybe getting a little bit deeper and darker as I go towards the darkest part of the painting. I just wanted to make it look like there were layers and layers of trees back in there, kind of going off into the foggy mist. And then of course touching up the trunk. So it's pretty much going back and forth between my lighter and darker colors on that side. And then finally adding some light in there to sort of give it dimension. And a few more tree trunks. I was kind of forming the land off in the distance as I went along. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to put where. I knew I wanted to add some faraway sort of green in here. So I went in with a dark green to begin with. And then I just sort of faded it out with my background color, which is blueberry and the cotton colors. And you can see I just sort of went in and like swirled it in there. At first I was going in pretty heavy, but then I decided I wanted it to look a little more misty. So I actually sprayed quite a bit of water on this part and made it almost like a watercolor, and then went in there with a mop brush and just blended in all of the colors around it too. So I'm adding more of that sky color around it and maybe underneath it a little bit, like there's mist going up. And I just kind of went back and forth and layered these ones in there. So you can see I got bigger and I got smaller, and then just finished it all up. And now I'm going in with a really light colored green, just a hint off in the distance. So I'm just putting a landmass up there. Just so you can start to see the bank coming down to the river off in the distance. And I'm just adding some grass and some details around the bottom of the tree trunk. And And here I'm using, for my greens, I used evergreen and kudzu and palmetto. And I kept it really dark and shaded in this area, so I let a lot of that midnight sky show through. Here I'm going in with a liner brush and adding just the smallest details into the grass and highlighting a few of them so that they stand out and get brighter, make it a little bit brighter in that area. And I wanted some of them, but not too much. Not too much, so I actually went back in and darkened some of that up and covered it over. I kind of just went back and forth in this area trying to figure out exactly how I wanted the lay of the land and the bank to look. And don't forget to paint your edges. So for the rest of this piece, I did go back and I just painted it using the midnight sky, which is what is all around the edge there. It's that black color. So the whole piece is black, and then it just has this scene sort of faded into this scene in the center of it. All right, so I'm mixing my cotton, and I'm also mixing the blueberry in with it. And I'm just slowly bringing my little waterfall and stream down. And you can see I sort of already had it in there from the previous day, but it wasn't like perfect. It was just, it wasn't highlighted enough. So I'm just sort of coming in right here and highlighting small areas, and I kind of swoop the brush down right there to sort of make like the water running over, and then it splashes down in the bottom. So basically I'm just sort of carving out where my stream is, only using that mix of cotton with a little bit of blueberry, and I think the darker mix had a hint of, because I went with two lights, the really bright almost white, and then one that had a little bit more of the hurricane gray in it. And I'm just using sort of a flat brush and just kind of going back and forth for these little lines. And for this one, I had it pretty reflected. It wasn't dark water, it was light and bright with all the light coming off of it because it's rushing water, so it had a lot of reflection to it, which I really liked the way it turned out. Looks like I grabbed some of my yellow and white, and I'm just brightening up that sky a little bit. It may have been a little bit just perfecting the blend, and you can always go back and do that at any time. I think I just wanted to add a little bit more yellow in there and brighten up some areas to almost make it look like there was a tree line off in the distance. I just wanted it brighter coming down the center, so. And I kind of brightened it to the point that right along my land that was kind of far away looked a little bit misty. So that really helped make it look like a really foggy scene come together. So I'm just adding some darks and lights coming down to the river, make it look like maybe there's some stones. And adding some bushes in too. And for the bushes, I used the same exact colors as I did for the grass. So it would be a little bit of evergreen, palmetto, and kudzu, and then daisy. So I think I mainly stuck with the palmetto and kudzu and added the daisy in there to brighten. the palmetto and kudzu are a little bit, they're just not such vibrant greens as the evergreen, and I just wanted this one to have a really like soothing sort of feel to it. So I didn't want to get too bright, except for with the yellow because the sun poking through would reflect a bit. Okay, so I'm going in with really bright white once this stream has dried a little bit, and I'm just using a fan brush. And just making that stream pop a little bit more. And then as it comes around the corner, it's going to be more in a shadow. So I just did a few lines in that shadow, a few reflections. And left most of it pretty dark on this one. And you can always come in like I am right now, add your darks back in if you've gotten a little carried away. I always end up going back and forth on this stuff, back and forth. There I was just adding some bright, like maybe a brighter gray, and just making almost like little half circles there to make it look like there may be some rocks. And darkening up some of my tree trunks. It's just all of these little details. You go in and you see a spot and you work on it, and that's really what ends up bringing the painting to life. And here I'm just adding some reflection on the side of one of my pine trees. I didn't want it to be like the birch that's on the other side, so I kind of just did an up and down sort of movement with the palette knife. And then while you've got the palette knife out, why not come in and add some texture to your land. I think I overdid it and then went back and sort of fixed that area. So, but it did add to sort of just giving it the lay of the land and brightening that area. Now I decided to add some trees a little bit smaller, a little bit closer. And I wanted them to be a little bit more like the birch tree. And then, of course, going in with the liner brush and adding all those tiny branches. And going in and adding the white bark. I think that was my favorite part of this whole painting, is how that bark ended up turning out so well and making it look like a birch tree. And I just took a hint of my cotton on that brush, or I mean on the palette knife, and just sort of scraped it sideways. And you can, of course, like I am here, go back in if you've gotten a little too light, add in a little more dark. I think I changed my mind a few times on this one. I was like, no, I want it lighter. No, I want it darker. So adding another tree. My camera's a little bit sideways, so it looks a little bit warped, but from straight on, it looked really good. white again and turning him into a birch. I tried not to overdo it on these smaller trees, just a little bit of it, but I didn't want them to disappear into the background. And I went back in because I had painted out most of it on that small one. Okay, so now it's time for the top. So I'm going to show you putting my final coat on. This is gator hide. It is a Dixie Belle product. It's a very strong and thick top coat. I'm using the blue sponge to apply it. That's one of the easiest ways I've found to get it on there. No brush strokes. You do want to make sure your surface is well prepped and clean before you apply the gator hide. So under the gator hide, I used the no pain gel stain after I stripped the top of the piece. It had a very thick finish on it, so for stripping it, I did one coat of stripper. I added saran wrap over the top of that and left it for the night, and then I did go back and do the stripper again. And then I sanded it a lot to get the rest of that finish off. The finish was really thick and took a lot to get it off. So when sanding, I went in with my sander and I used a lower grit sandpaper, and then after I'd gotten every little last bit off of the wood, I used a higher grit sandpaper to really smooth it out. You want your wood nice and smooth when you put that no pain gel stain on it, to make sure that it goes on nice and even and doesn't show any sanding marks. When using the sponge with the gator hide, you want to make sure you always work with a wet edge and try not to go back and get any places that you missed, because you'll be able to get them with the second and third coats. For the top of pieces, I like to do at least 3 coats, but you can see that the sponge puts it on really nice and really smooth, and I think it's my favorite way to apply it for sure. No brush strokes. So you leave a nice wet edge, work pretty quick, this stuff dries fast, and go all the way in nice long strokes across the top. Don't forget those edges either. And that's all for this piece. You can see it dries a little more matte, but it's a really beautiful finish on the top. I want to say thank you guys so much for watching. That's all I have on this piece. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you like this video.